So here's another dream interpretation. This happened a couple days ago. So it was a very strange dream. I don't necessarily remember all of it. I just know that there was a lot going on in the dream. And it was sort of like a cat and mouse game, I want to say. I don't know if there was this man, but I believe he was not exactly who he was pretending to be. So he was wearing a false mask. And I believe throughout the dream, it was a younger person that was kind of like kept slipping through this man's hands, if that makes sense. So again, I feel like it was like a cat and mouse game, because it kept like, it's like this other person, this man, I believe he had like a plot against this other person, but he was trying to hide that. He was trying to hide or pretend who he really was, or what he was really after. And in the dream, he just came off like this really like pulled together person, like really handsome and like very fit as far as like his physique. He was very in just eating well, and like he took really good care of himself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it looked like he was eating well, he was dedicating time to, working out and everything else. So it seemed like he was put together, but the thing that wasn't obvious was everything that was going on in his mind. And everything that was going on in his mind was just like dark. And so a lot of times he didn't talk much, but it was because he was observing what the other person was doing. And the reason for that, again, is because he was like absorbing everything that was going on in the environment, and whatever the other person was saying or doing. It's like he was just all taking it in and like figuring it out in his head. So he didn't say much. He was sort of just listening, but at the same time, the way he appeared on the outside was not exactly what was hidden inside in his mind, because it was like this kind of darkness there that was hidden. And what I remember from the dream is like he came off like this, I don't want to say dark, but in a sense he seemed like this sort of dark or mysterious. And the reason for that is because he was quiet. He didn't talk much. He didn't really state his opinions much. Like he just really, for the most part, it seemed like the other person was mostly the one engaging and talking and saying things, while this person was just mostly listening and taking everything in. But again, it's because it was a ploy. This other person was just there with another intention. He had another intention. So he was there, but with a different intention than what he was putting on. And that's why, to me, it seemed like he was dark, or seemed sort of dark. And also, I feel like what was also the dark part is because he was being false, but also because in his mind there was like inner turmoil. It's like there was darkness there. It's like he was using what was being said, what was being expressed, everything that he was seeing and everything else. He was taking all that in, but it was being used for like hidden. It's like he had a hidden motive, and so he was taking all that information but using it as like a weapon to use against this other person. So that's the way I feel like he came across as being dark, because he didn't initially come across as his true, genuine self. He was being false in what he was truly, his intentions were, and how he was coming across. So that's why it's just like he painted himself out to be something, the way the external and the way the internal, especially the mindset, was really, it was hidden. It was just, that's, I feel like that's what came off to me as dark or brooding, because it was that darkness in the mind. Because again, he was taking all these little bits and pieces of information that he was gathering to be able to use that against this other person. Kind of like a counter attack, except there wasn't no need to counter attack, because no one was attacking in the first place. He was just using all of these things. Those were his tactics to begin with, because again, it was his, he was using these things to go against this person. So they were weapons. He was taking them in, all this information, all this knowledge, and using that as a weapon to go against this other person. And in his mind, it's like he was keeping files of all this information and filing it away in his brain, in his mind, to later come back when he needed it. And it's like he was filing it away in different sections, and just, that's why he was like quiet, and just because he was taking that, absorbing it, but also like trying to figure out the person at the same time. It's like in his mind, he was trying to figure out who this person was. And to this person, it seemed like, the way the person came across, it wasn't genuine, or it wasn't real, or something like that. But it's because the way he is, it's like a thief. Who is a thief is going to think that everybody else is a thief, because they're used to being thieves. So of course they're going to think everybody else is a thief, But that's not the case. I mean, a person that's honest is not going to think everybody else is dishonest. They're going to believe that there are good people and there's some that are dishonest. But when you're in that type of mentality where you con people or you wear false masks, you're gonna think everybody's wearing a false mask all the time. And I think that's the mindset this person had. But because this is who he was, this was what his intentions was, to play people, So I don't recall a lot of other information. I just know it was like a lot going on in the dream, and there was like a lot of it was just a lot of like running, or just like cat and mouse chase, something with that. But then also what I do really remember and was emphasized to me is like the ending. So the ending is really what I remember mostly. What I remember is that there was this small person, and it came off to me like a child, but I don't think it was a child. It's just I think the way it came across, the person came across as being childlike, not necessarily a child, but being like, I think the way it was being presented to me in the dream is the way it came across to me. So it looked like a child, like a small child hanging, but it wasn't a child. I think it was just like, it was somehow just, I think because the way that the intentions of this other person is like he was coming against a child, someone that was innocent, basically, not necessarily being a child, but the person looked small and looked really, in comparison to the other person, like really small and just really completely like disadvantaged, and that's also was the emphasis, because this person came through and looked like a child. Like, how would you go against a child? Like, that makes no sense. It's just so, it just makes no sense. Like, why would you come after a child? Like, who would come after a child? Like, who would want to do that? Like, it just does not make any sense. But I think it was like, it was just being painted to me in that way to make a point and to emphasize the fact that this person really was completely off. But I don't think he even cared at that point, or he was just too far invested to even see or understand exactly what it was that was going on. But that's the way it was presented to me at the end, and that's basically what I remember. I remember seeing this like child. It looked like a small child, and he was hanging on like this metal bar, and he was grasping on with his two hands, and it looked like the kid was scared because he was holding on, and he was scared because he didn't want to let go, because he knew if he let go he would fall, and he would be gone. He knew, like, if he let go, like, he would be gone. And then next to him was this guy, and the guy was also hanging in this metal bar. So the way it came through to me was like, they had been supposedly good friends, but I don't think they were ever friends. It was just, again, a ploy. I feel like the guy had ulterior motives to why he wanted it to come off that way. He was playing a part for it to look this way, but it wasn't, because he had ulterior motives, and so he was false, and it just looked so off. It looked terrible, because there's this child, and it's like this man is coming after this small itty bitty like child. Like, it just didn't make any sense, the brutality of what this man was doing. So I saw the man, and he was like fit. Again, he looked healthy, like he looked fit, in really good shape, and he was strong, and he was in shape and everything, and he was holding on, and like the child was right next to him, and he was looking over at him, and he was just like, kind of like, I don't know if I don't know. I think that the way in his mind it looked, I think he just saw it like there was just no competition. I think that's the way it came across to him. Like, there was no resistance, or no reason to have any resistance, or for there to be any difficulties for him to do what he wanted to do. Because the way he said he saw it, or he looked at it, or it came across to him, it looked like it was something very easy to him, something he was gonna gain easily. is the way that I saw it also. And it was like an allegory, the kid in the end, the way he came through as a kid. And, in comparison to this big old man being in shape and everything, and the kid being small and just being really completely innocent, it just didn't even make sense. It just looked so completely off. And this is what the man was going after. This is who this man had been plotting against. Didn't make any sense. And he looked over at him and he saw and he, at that point, he didn't care, because obviously he's hanging on to this metal bar, and what he wants to do is he doesn't want to slip. And they're both holding on to this metal bar and they're not wanting to let go. So they're both gripping on and holding on, making sure that they don't fall off. But at the same time, it's like they both have to hold on and completely independent of one another, because now it's up to them separately to fight and to try not to fall off. So now they're having to fight for their own selves independently. They're no longer trying to, this guy is not trying to hunt this person the way it seemed like. But now it was about trying to save themselves separately, independently from one another. And so it had changed. It was no longer, the one coming after the other one, or the one chasing after the other one and trying to trap them or trying to catch them or something. So this man was like holding on this bar, and then I saw him it looked like he would be easily able to hold on to this bar and not have any problems. It looked like the one that would have more problems would be the kid, because he's small, he has no strength, his size. And then also it looked like he had there was no comparison to him and that big old man that was in shape and that, had trained for years to be in shape and everything. But it didn't happen that way. The way I saw it was that then he was struggling to hold on, and one of his arms slipped, one of his hands slipped. And so then he was holding on with only one hand. And then that's when he really got scared, because he saw that no matter how much he was trying to hold on, it didn't matter. And he knew eventually he was going to lose his grip again, and then it was going to be over. And then really I think at that point he realized what he had gotten himself into. I think it was at that point that he realized all of this, he himself got himself into that situation, and I don't think that he ever realized he was gonna have to defend himself or fight for his survival. In a way, it just didn't seem like that, because in his mind, in the way that he had worked it out, it was just going to be really easily to take what he wanted from this other person. But it wasn't what he had wanted, because it was never about him. It was never about what he had wanted to gain. It wasn't that way, and I think that's the whole point behind what the dream was about. I think that the man had deliberate motives, and they were masked. He was masking his intentions, and in the end, like I said, when he was holding on with one arm, and he knew eventually he was going to have to let go, because he could no longer hold on, and he was going to lose his grip. And then it didn't matter now what the child was doing or what he thought of the child. It didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter if the child was holding on to or he was gonna let go or anything. Like, none of that mattered anymore, because now it was about him and trying to fight to hold on and to not lose grip and have to suffer, and be or meet his demise, basically. And I think it just, he saw things differently at that split second, knowing that it was never really what he had thought it was about. And I think it was at that moment when he slipped, one of his hands slipped, and he was holding on with barely one arm, with one hand, when he realized, I'm gonna be gone. Like, he knew he was not gonna be able to save himself, and there was no one else to call on or to help him or to assist him. He was by himself, and it's like he had put himself in that situation. So he had no one to blame or no one to call on or to go to or reach out to, because he himself had put himself in that situation. And then, like, it didn't even matter what everything was about anymore. And he looked over at the kid, and I don't think he was a kid. I think it just, again, it was like an allegory. And I think that's when it made sense to him. Like, he made a big mistake, or he made a huge mistake for coming after someone that really didn't even, like, it was uncalled for. I think that's the way it came across, because in comparison to this person, it just came through as a child. And you have this child and this man, this grown man, coming after this child. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't, it's off. Not only is it off, but then it makes this person come off as inhuman. It comes across as someone that is truly vicious, really vicious, and it comes through as really evil, malicious, and vindictive. And that's that darkness that was, I think it was hidden, and not everybody picked up on it, because it wasn't necessarily there externally. It's like it was being hidden in that person's mental. It was being hidden in the way they viewed things, in the way that they perceived, in the way that they thought about things, in the way that they were analyzing, in the way that they were acquiring all this information to attack this other person. And it was evil. The way it looked at the end, it looked evil, because he was coming against a child that was uncalled for. It was completely uncalled for. And at that moment, it didn't matter anymore, because now he was barely holding on, and he knew that he was going to be able to hold on anymore, and he was going to lose his grip. And then he would know, like, it was all for nothing at the end. Like, none of it mattered. None of it mattered. None of it was what he had imagined it to be, and none of it there was no gain from it. There was really, he had put himself in that situation, and he had no one else to blame but himself for getting himself in that situation. And then eventually I did see the man letting go of the one hand he was holding on to. He couldn't hold on anymore, because this was like a big man, not huge, but he was like probably like maybe 6 feet tall, and he was not built, but he was in pretty good shape, and not like super extremely muscular, but he was fit and he was in good shape, you know? So he was cut. But so again, it's like it just didn't make sense why this other person looked weak. You know, it just looks so like small in comparison. But yet this other person, he had been barely able to hold on. He was like holding on with one arm, with one hand, and then he was a big person, so he was heavy, and he couldn't like hold on with just one hand. And eventually he knew he was going to lose grip. As much as he was fighting, the more he was fighting, it's like the more he was losing grip and losing the ability to hold on. And he was trying to put his other arm to reach again to the metal bar, and the more that he tried, it's like the more he wore himself out, and eventually he couldn't hold on anymore. It was just so hard, because it was like he was tired and he was fighting and everything, and he released. He couldn't hold on anymore, and his hand was tired, his arm was tired, they were aching, and eventually it was like too much because he was heavy. He had a lot of weight on him, and eventually it's like his hand gave up, and he lost grip, and that's when he just plunged, and I just saw him falling all the way down, and it's like the fall was endless. It just looked like it was endless, and it was like this really black like pit, but it seemed like he kept falling and never really hitting the bottom. It just looked like he was going through this black like this black void, and he just never actually hit. It's like he never actually hit to the bottom. I think like it was endless. I feel like this void, or this tunnel, this black void, this black tunnel, whatever it was like endless. And he just seemed like he was falling and falling and falling and falling, but never reaching like a fall, like never hitting a ground or anything. So it just seemed like he was constantly falling and falling and falling and falling. And that's the state he was in, constantly falling, knowing that at one point he would hit like the ground, and there was nothing there. Like he had though he was completely at mercy. He was completely defeated. He had completely surrendered at that point. But yet, like, he couldn't reach the ground. He couldn't reach like the end of it. And so it was like he was in a loop, consistently going through that fall, and it just seemed endless. And I don't think he ever reached the end of it. I don't think he ever reached a fall or hitting a ground or anything. He just consistently, I saw him consistently like floating and knowing he was gonna hit eventually, but just never happened. And that's basically what I saw. And so yeah, it was pretty deep, really. But I wish I could remember more of what was going on. But I just felt like there was a lot going on. But I don't remember what was going on. I just feel like these two, like one was being hunted, or it's like this person was coming for him, and the other person I knew wasn't a child. But in the end, it was like an allegory. The way it came off, it was being presented that way, but it didn't mean that it was real. And I think the person at the end also, he looked over and he realized like there had been no reason for him to attack this person, no reason for this man to go after this child. It just didn't make sense to him at that point either. I think at one point, like, it made sense to him, and at that point, knowing that he was gonna be gone and that like nothing was gonna save him, I think he realized that it had been his own, like his own doing, like his own demise. And so yeah, that's the most recent dream I had. And the other thing also, I feel like the hanging man, to me, that comes through as the one card in the tarot, I don't remember what it's called. It's like this hanging man. The hangman, I believe it's called. The hangman, or the hanging man, something like that. And I think that's what's being represented by that also. I felt like it gave me the energy, or it gave me like the impression of being that type of figurative, you know, like that of the hanging man, or the energy, the qualities of the hanging man. And that's the way it appeared to me. But yeah, the end, the fall was infinite. I really don't even think that he ever reached, I don't think he ever made it to a surface. He was just consistently falling, I think, which also may be significant. So I'll leave it there for now. But this was just a couple days ago that I had this dream, and I wanted to share that because I feel like it's speaking about things that are experiencing, some people might be experiencing, where there's like this disadvantage, someone attacking another person where it's completely uncalled for, and another person being completely at some type of disadvantage, but it's because of this disadvantage that is going to be their own demise. You know, it's like judging a book by its cover and not realizing that is there for a reason. You know, it was there for them to not see it for what it was, in order for them to sabotage their own selves and not be able to see them as they truly are. So I'll leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed, and please make sure that you like and that you subscribe, share with others, hit the notification bell so that you can receive messages whenever I post. And I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time. Take care. Thank you.